Hello and welcome to the video. This is my follow-up video to one that I did a couple of weeks ago where I unboxed and went through what the SharkByte system for Fat Shark actually was. Now loads of people have already done their videos on it, but I wanted to wait until I had a couple of weeks under my belt flying with this regularly to do a more considered review. Now I fly lots of HD systems. Obviously I've been flying this, but I've also flown things like the Connex and the DJI systems as well as other stuff. So it was interesting to see how this performed when compared to those other systems, as well as good old traditional analog FPV. You also asked some fantastic questions on that original video. So in the testing that I've done, I've tried to make sure that I can answer all of those with some real world practical testing and from my experience over the last 2 weeks as well. So time goes down below and I'll go through this and hopefully answer some of this stuff with a little bit less of the fanboy stuff and a little bit more of the facts. So the first question that I've had is, what's the range like? Interestingly, the range from my testing here is exactly the same as you'd get from an analog system on the same power. So realistically, you're talking 300, 350 meters max on 25 milliwatts. On 200 milliwatts, you're getting about, I don't know, just under a kilometer. And on 500 milliwatts, the maximum power, you're getting about a mile. So in terms of the range, you can think of it very much in the same way as an analog system. The only comment I'll make on this is the antenna alignment does make a huge amount of difference. These patch antennas in particular need to be pointing into the sky, and you'll probably notice that my patch antennas are pointing up slightly. That is because most FPV pilots, myself included, do tend to look down a little bit when they're flying, and you do really need these patch antennas in play to get that very sensitive reception out in front of you. So be aware of that when you're using them on your goggles. Make sure that you tilt them up as much as you can, and then that way you'll get the best possible view of the sky, even if you tilt your head down a little bit. Next question I got was, how does it handle breakup? Now this is one of those interesting things. In analog, as you get to the edge of range, you start to get static and breakup of lines, and that's warning you that you're pushing your range a little bit. And then if you continue going, then eventually the video starts to break up completely, ends up just like static, just like a TV when it isn't tuned to a station. And when it comes back, the analog signal, as soon as it's strong enough, gets picked up and the image starts to clear up in your goggles. Interestingly, this thing works in a very similar way. When you go behind something that's going to block the signal to all the antennas, it can break up completely, but as soon as you clear that obstacle, the image comes back. Similarly, if you are flying at the towards the edge of the distance away from you, all these videos at the moment that I'm showing you are obviously at 25 milliwatts. If you get to the edge of that range, then you do get little bits of breakup as well to let you know that it's probably time to turn around and come home. Now obviously in those places where it's legal, you can increase the power and the brute force of the increased power being radiated from the video transmitter will help with that breakup, but there isn't any 20-second reacquiring of the image. As soon as the model reappears back in the view of the antennas on your goggles, the image instantly reappears. Now that does mean that as I fly through some of the gaps that I normally fly through on this field, I am briefly for a moment losing the video, but I'm popping out the other side and it's immediately reappearing. So I'm pretty comfortable now. I know what the edge of range starts to look like with little bits of breakup, and I definitely know if I lose it, then on a quadcopter anyway, if I blip the throttle and rise above the obstacle, the image is going to come back instantly. Really good question is latency. Using the same setup that I normally do, where I set my GoPro to 200 frames a second and try and capture the difference between an LED appearing in the camera and appearing in real life, the glass-to-glass delay is really low. It's only 1 frame. I think Fat Shark quote 15 milliseconds but I can only ever get it to be 1 frame. So in the testing here, it feels a little bit less than that. But let's assume that Fat Shark know more than I do, which they probably do for this, on 15 milliseconds. But the locked in feel is really good with this. I don't feel that there's any lag. I don't feel that I'm having to wait for anything. And it also doesn't feel like that changes over distance. So as I get towards the edge of distance, I don't feel disconnected from the model. And checking with Fat Shark, that's the way it should work. It should be Fat Shark's quoted 15 milliseconds in wherever it is in range where you can receive it. There's only a couple of things you have to be a little bit careful of with that. Obviously, the HDMI signal is coming into the goggles. With some older goggles, I remember hearing stories from my Connex experience of some of the HDMI inputs for goggles weren't particularly fast. So just be aware of that. But if your HDMI is like the ones on these HDO2s, HDOs, those kind of goggles, then it is going to be pretty instant. Really good experience with the latency. I have heard reports of stuttering. I haven't had that here, but apparently looking into it, it appears that what happens is if the signal can't be received, then it will show a pink frame. Why pink? I don't know. And because it's diversity, what it'll do, it buffers the last image, so you get this thing where it'll show the image and then the pink frame, image, pink frame, until the diversity system can get everything back and the video comes back in, and that's what that stuttering is. Talking to Fat Shark, it sounds like what they're going to do is they might tweak that rather than show the buffered frame, just to stop any disorientation that you might get. But I've not seen that in all the flying I've done here, so that's all kind of second hand, but I thought it was worthwhile mentioning. Next question was about low light performance. Now this is out in the back garden. This is about 4:30, which in the UK at the moment is very late dusk. I'll put an image here of what it actually looked like to the naked eye. The camera itself is performing very, very well. I've got it on standard default settings, this little RunCam camera that's part of the system. A little bit of noise in the sky, but as usual with the RunCam stuff, it isn't smearing too much. And also you can see how nicely the camera's performing. There isn't a lot of fisheye on this, considering the small size of the lens. So in terms of nighttime performance, it's behaving like a pretty standard RunCam in that it works really, really nicely. It's very sensitive. I'd be happy to fly in dusk conditions with this system, where some of the others I might not. I did also have lots of questions about what difference do the goggles make. Obviously, if you're going to use a set of goggles that have a much lower resolution on the panels, you aren't going to get the full benefit. Now, I haven't tested them on anything here apart from my HDOs and my HDO2s. Those are modern OLED goggles. They're, you know, the best goggles that Fat Shark make. So surprise, surprise, the experience that I've had with them has been very good. You will see an improvement in the image in older goggles with lower resolution panels, but for the best experience, ideally you want to be using a goggle that has a reasonably high definition panel, and ideally OLED, so you get those beautiful colors that the camera is going to be sending you. The on-screen display text is quite small at the moment. That isn't changeable, and that is one of the things that you're definitely going to need a panel or a goggle that has a reasonably high resolution in order to read that clearly. I'd imagine that on goggles like the HD3s, HD2s that have a lower resolution, that on-screen display might be a bit tricky to read. So the next big question, of course, and the elephant in the room, is how does this compare to the DJI system? I thought the easiest way to do this was to kind of do it on a scale. So here's a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is the worst and 10 is the best. And let's kind of put the different FPV systems on here, and then we'll stick SharkByte on using the experience that I've had over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, on the left-hand side, 1 is going to be old school analog, what it was like 5-6 years ago with old generation of goggles, old cameras, pretty basic receivers. That's kind of going to be your 1 and your 2. So that's kind of the base, the bottom line of the scale. Similarly, on the right hand side, 10 is going to be the DJI system. If you're running the latest update, with the latest amount of refresh in a great environment. Particularly if you're running it at higher powers so you can get those distances, then it is simply the most technically impressive HD FPV system that I've personally flown. And again, I've flown quite a few. Now, modern analog FPV, let's put that on the scale first. Modern analog FPV, using things like modern OLED goggles with modern systems like the rapid fire, like the Fusion, the super duper diversity modules, the modern cameras from people like Foxeer and Runcam. With all of those pieces and modern antennas, it is much, much better than the analog that we were flying 5-6 years ago. So I would say that on this scale of 1 to 10, I would put the best analog FPV about 3 and 4, depending on the kind of system that you have. Now, that leaves an awful big gap between the best that analog can offer and DJI. And that, I think, is where this is going to slot. So that, of course, leaves the big question, where on this scale is SharkByte going to be? And I put it a very solid 7. Maybe 7.5 on a really good day, if you can use the higher powers and get a little bit more range. And hopefully that helps those of you that have watched an awful lot of the other reviews where they have just dismissed it because it's not DJI, give you an idea of how it actually works. Compared to even the best analog setup that I've got here, the difference is night and day. I can see an awful lot more in the goggles. I'm back to seeing, which I've never seen in my HDO2s, I'm back to seeing individual branches, individual leaves as I fly around. That kind of clarity I'm usually only getting from the DJI system. Now, there are a lot of things that I really like about this. I like the fact that the on-screen display works, and hopefully they're going to add more support for that. The initial support for it has been good. Hopefully we're going to get more of that. A vector-based on-screen display would be amazing, Fat Shark. Let me just put that in the mix. I love the way that the recovery of the image, if you are flying towards the edge of range or you fly behind an obstacle on lower powers where you lose the image briefly, is super quick. And I love the fact that that happens. It makes me feel very confident that I can fly in places where I fly analog at the same kind of power levels and not worry about it. The setup is very simple. It's very, very similar to analog stuff. So if you're an analog pilot, this is going to look, feel, smell and taste exactly like your analog system, but it's going to look an awful lot better in your goggles. The camera performance is also very good. The camera performance, let's face it, this is a little Runcam camera. This was my test rig that you've been seeing some footage from. It's a little Runcam camera. You can access all the same settings on the camera that you can on any other FPV Runcam camera. So again, you know, if you're an analog pilot and you fly analog, it's just going to feel really, really normal. And of course, it means that you can use, if you already have an investment in FPV stuff, you can just snap it onto your goggles, plug your HD cable in, and away you go. A couple of other things I would have liked to see. The VTX does run quite hot on the bench, but actually runs fine when you're flying out and about. It stays nice and cool. I guess it's designed to be that way. Interestingly, and I can talk about this because somebody in my previous video was actually letting the cat out the bag a little bit. There is a small board that's been designed for whoops. So Fat Shark has a much smaller VTX unit that will fit on things like whoops. That smaller unit I'm very, very excited about getting my hands on, but that would open a whole new area of high definition FPV to parts of the hobby that currently can't get it right now. A smaller goggle module with a bit more sensitivity might be nice. This is only 80 grams and actually it's not that bad. Having flown it now, I'm not too worried about the weight, but having a little bit more sensitivity with these panels, or maybe having the ability to angle the panels might be nice. And I would also have liked a little bit less interference for the GPS with the system. Now, I have reported this back. I have a GPS on this quad. The idea was to have beta flight recovery mode. So if I did go slightly too far away and I did start to lose the image, I could just flick that switch and have it come back. I'm struggling to get a GPS lock with the system, with the GPS as close to the SharkByte video transmitter as it is on that model. I think it's just too close. Again, reported that back to Fat Shark. This was an issue I saw with the original Bite Frost system, so Fat Shark are currently investigating that. There'll probably be some guidance about tips and tricks to get your GPS working as well, because obviously, ideally, I'd like to put this in an INF powered wing. So, in summary, what do I think? If you are a pilot that hasn't got any investment in goggles or any kit and you want to try HD FPV, you're going to buy the DJI system. The DJI system is technically the most impressive image that exists right now. Also, if you're loaded and you've got the money, then if you're going to try an HD system, even if you've got the Fat Shark stuff, you're probably going to go out and buy the DJI system as well. But if you are somebody that has a big investment in your analog kit and you don't have a spare £800, $800 floating around, then this is a viable option that works really well, that will allow you to try out HD FPV without breaking the bank. Estimated prices for the final production when it goes on sale, from what I've heard, is about the $300 mark, and the VTX and cameras are going to be combined, cost less than the Cadix system for the DJI kit, so it's going to be substantially cheaper. Now, does that mean that this is value for money? That's an answer that only you, the individual pilot, can come up with. If you already have the DJI system, there's pretty much no point in getting this. If you have a load of goggles and you want to try it but you don't have DJI money, this is a great option to try. I'm very pleased that Fat Shark have persevered with this and got it out to market, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the final version. I will be flying this. There will be days where I'll go to the field and I'll be flying with analog. There'll be days where I go to the field and I'll be flying with my DJI system, and guess what? There'll be days when I go up the field and I'll be flying with this. I will use the system that kind of best suits the model that I'm flying and suits the receiver that I've got in there already. So hopefully those of you that have watched some of the other video reviewers who have gone because it's not DJI, it's crap, hopefully that gives you a little bit more information. It's not crap, it's a really good system, and if I hadn't got the DJI system, I'd be quite happy playing with this. And I think that's what it boils down to. If you've already got the DJI system, this isn't going to be of interest. But if you haven't got the DJI system and want to try HD FPV and bolt it to your goggles, then we've got SharkByte. Thank you for watching my video and watching right to the very end. If you want to find out what I'm currently working on, you can follow me on social media by searching for Painless360 in the usual places. If you'd like to become part of the inner circle, then you can become a Patreon. Details are in the description and you get lots of additional benefits. Check out the playlist section on the channel too. I organise all of my videos into playlists, and it's called something like Introduction to or for Beginners. All of the content is aimed so that you can start at the very beginning, and it teaches you that subject, starting with simple principles and moving up to teach you everything you need to know.